Okay, so let me introduce you guys to our panelists. Can you hear me? Is that better? Okay. All right, we're going to start right here with Sarah Schwartz-Casquedes. Sarah has a bachelor's of science degree in mass communications from Boston University and a master of education degree from Harvard University. Sarah has been in the education and media field for almost 20 years and worked with the Miami Children's Museum for 6 years. Sarah founded a digital art program for inner city students, managed the Miami Children's Film Festival, and founded and co-taught a series of film classes for elementary school students. So let's give it a round of applause for Sarah. Next we have Mr. Frank Castillo. Frank is the Director of Campus Ministry and former department chairperson of the Theology Department. Frank teaches philosophy and film appreciation at Archbishop McCarthy High School in Southwest Ranches. He also serves as an adjunct professor in the social and behavioral sciences at Broward College, where he teaches Introduction to Religious Studies and World Religions. He is currently working on developing a syllabus for a course entitled Film, Religion, and Society. He has a degree in theology from St. Vincent de Paul Regional Seminary, and he is a doctoral candidate for the Doctor of Ministry program from Barry University. Let's give it up for Frank Castillo. Now, our final panelist is another Frank, and we have 3 Franks in the room, and that can be very dangerous. So, 1, 2, 3. Okay, anyway. Father Frank Black. Yes, a round of applause. Father Frank Black. He was born in Kingston, Jamaica. Father Black was ordained into the priesthood for the Diocese of Brooklyn on Saturday, May 24, 1980, in Presentation Church, Jamaica, where he served as a deacon. In September of 2000, Father Black was assigned as the pastor of St. Lawrence Parish in Spring Creek, Brooklyn, where he continues to serve. Soon he was introduced to St. Francis and St. Joseph House and the talented and inspirational men of Grassroots Films, and counts Joe Campo and his crew among his friends. And Grassroots Films was the producer of the movie you just saw. So let's give another round of applause for Father Frank Black. Okay, guys, so how the panel discussion is going to work, each panelist are going to talk about 5 minutes about the film from their areas of expertise, and then what we'll do is we're going to open it up for comments and questions, and really let's hear what you have to say about the film and have any questions for our panelists, any on their interpretations of the film, but really express what you felt and what you saw, because you're the reason why this film is up here. Because we want more films like this to be made, and we want messages to spread across the globe. So let's hear what you have to say, and hopefully when we communicate about the film, it will inspire us, filmmakers or people that that can help produce films like this get out there. So let's start with Sarah.
Sorry, I said I always have to go first. So I have to preface this by saying I'm an educator, so I never speak for 5 minutes about anything. I usually speak for much less because it's a collaborative experience. But as I was watching this film, what I took from this film, it is about the joy of humanity, but more so than that, it's about community. That's in every one of the situations that they were in, starting with these young men who are living together because they've had difficulties in their lives. They've formed a family, they've formed a community. And as they were in each of the situations, that's what I was taking. It wasn't just that they were experiencing the joy of life, it's they're experiencing the joy of life and thinking about how they could take care of each other. When they were spending time with the homeless men, they were telling them, don't, sleep near a church, do this, and remember that we're all people. With the kids, what struck me was the scene between, hey Victor, where are you? I'm in therapy. Really just looking out for each other, thinking of each other again as a community. And the final scene with the leper colony, my gosh, that it's, we've been cast out by our families and cast out by our friends, but we're grateful to have each other, and we help each other as a community. And this sort of open, I'm a writer too, and so I always get the quotes in my head, and as the film was ending, I thought, well, this is my job description for being a human. This is really it is. I have to really make sure that I'm looking out for everyone else, because that's, what life is those communities, those many communities that we're all part of. So that was my major thought from the film. I was blown away by this film. I really crying at the end, like a lot of people, I'm sure. So, thank you.
Good evening. My reaction to the film, first thought that came into my head is I am speechless. I believe the film is extremely powerful. I believe this film expresses, quite frankly, what it means to be a human. It takes away all the layers that all the artificial layers, all the cosmetic layers that humanity places on ourselves, and is a very frank discussion of what it means to be a human person in the world. And I found it to be quite a beautiful film, not necessarily from an artistic perspective, although that is present, quite evident in the movie, but because it presents us with truth. And I keep referring to that letter that Pope John Paul II wrote to the artist, where he was asking the artist to allow us to give humanity the ability to express ourselves, who we are, but more of who we are, of what truth is. And then there's a connection between beauty and truth. And this movie plasters that connection. It expresses that connection quite well in film through the eyes of young people who themselves are going through a very difficult struggle. In their struggle, they find meaning in life and meaning for themselves as well. So I believe this film is something that we all need to express. This film allows us to get a perspective on life that perhaps we know it through experience, but we haven't articulated yet. This is a film that to me is a scream in all the madness, but not a scream of madness itself, but it's like asking us to stop. It's asking us to look at ourselves. And it's asking us to ask questions. In the questions is where we are going to find answers. And if we don't find the answers, then the questions themselves are what's going to lead us not just to find truth, but to find beauty in life as well. The film class that I teach, I structured it in such a way that the films that I choose speak about identity, who are we? And next, once we know who we are, we ask the question, what is the meaning? Search for meaning. And then the third section of my film class that I teach, then we look for human relations. And I believe in finding identity, in finding meaning, and then in finding relations, we have just completed the circle of life. And I believe this movie does a very good job in presenting that idea, that we are human beings in relationship.
These were really beautiful thoughts expressed here, but I'm a little different in this situation that I actually know these guys. I actually spent time with them, and they are just the way you see them on the film. But as you know, they were trying to explain what this film was going to be, and if you'll try and do this, go out and try and explain what the human experience is about, and you can't really express it. I mean, you can say what they told me what it was about, these three experiences, and I'm like, well, quite frankly, it sounds pretty boring, but I'll look at it. I'll see what it's like. And when I saw it, and this is like the fifth time I've seen it, I saw like the first cut, and they've edited it various times. When I saw it, I had the same reaction that I heard a lot of other people having. Just extremely moved. But I'm a priest, right? So I always have to look at things from a theological perspective, right? Because that's what we do. And all I could think of as I was watching this movie was, oh my gosh, they managed to capture on film the Catholic doctrine of the cross. And every time I see it, I just get this more and more, oh, they've actually managed to express what we've been trying to express for about 2,000 years now. A lot of people haven't gotten. I presume this is a predominantly Catholic crowd. And if you're not Catholic, then you're going to get a little Catholic theology right now. Because we always, if you notice, we always get in trouble, or we always get misunderstood in the Catholic Church, because we present not the symbol of the cross, which is easy, that Jesus, hung on this cross and now he's not on the cross. No, we present the crucified Jesus on the cross. We present a crucifix. And that's what we do different than most other Christian churches, because we focus on the fact that Jesus didn't just die on the cross and conquer it, but that Jesus lived through human suffering and made sense out of human suffering and continued to love within human suffering. That's the basis of our Catholic theology. That anything we go through, there's hope that comes out of it. There's some sort of sense you can get out of it because Jesus came and lived it and conquered it. Not that he just passed through, but that he went through all the pain and struggle that we go through and actually managed to show us love through it. And as I watch the human experience, that's what I see over and over again. And I'll tell you something, it's even more miraculous. So you're going to get a little tidbit that very few other people get. The director of this film, the reason why Grassroots Films took off is that the director of this film, who knew about St. Francis and St. Joseph House, where these guys lived, came into New York City, not to live in St. Francis and St. Joseph's House, but came into New York City to get a job with a very prestigious film company, which I forget the name of right now. And the job was supposed to start on September 12th, 2001. And what happened was, the day before, the job disappeared. And he had to move into St. Francis and St. Joseph's House because he had no place to go in New York City right now, and he had no job to pay for any kind of rent. So because he was a very talented director, and still is, as you can see, he started working with these guys, and Joe Campo, who always had this dream of making films that would give a positive message. He started making these films. There's a few of them. This is the last one they've done, as a sign of hope for people that have lived through the cross, have lived through the struggles, have lived through the pain, and managed to remain hope-filled enough that they could produce this thing of beauty that has touched the lives and hearts of so many people. To my mind, the human experience is the presentation of the cross in a way that is a marvelous presentation. And I love it, and I love the guys for having made it. Thank you very much.
Comments, questions you may have?
I think one thing also that this film captures is the essence of God himself. God's self. If God is that thing between, if God is that love that manifests itself between people, then this film captures that completely. God's transcendent incarnation in all of humanity, across all humanity, and I think that's beautiful.
I would to reflect upon two scenes. The people of Ghana, when they're talking about how they are, and they're saying how the family for them is so fundamental that when someone loses their mother or someone loses their father, they find them mother or they find them father, and that was so beautiful. Not to throw out there, as a political thing, but just a fundamental necessity. It's so common sense. And the second thing is the woman in Ghana who had AIDS, who was so visibly struggling with accepting it and suffering so much. When he asked her what she would tell her children, she changed, and she became, with a certainty and with a faith, her words were to love and follow God. And I just found that so amazing, because although she was suffering, she didn't lose her convictions. She had not lost her faith. She was just struggling as a human being with her suffering. So, what a lesson.
Two things that stuck out to me about this film is one, at the beginning, Jeff is in a room and he's being interviewed, and the directors break up the interview with space, with black space and with silence, and
that struck me at first, and I wondered why they did that when they had the scientists speak. It was all presented at once and very continuous. And I think now reflecting on what our panel talks about it and being community, at the beginning of the film, they were showing Jeff's journey from solitude to community and using space as a small kind of artistic detail that I really appreciated. The other thing that my friends and I, we came down from the University of Florida to see this film, and something that we were talking about that I think this film portrays very eloquently, though not in these exact words, is that the quality of life does not determine the value of life.
You know, I was thinking about that too. I was thinking about that very thing when I want to go on and on and on. Because that's a big thing now, especially with all the debate that's going on about, you know, healthcare and who gets healthcare and all this kind of stuff, which are not easy questions. But in point and in fact, I get really scared when I hear people talk about the quality of life. When you look at one of the comments that was made in the film, how we all affect other people's lives, I'm sure you have seen families, I know families like this, that have had a child born with Down syndrome, or had a child born with an extreme disability. There are two things that can happen in that family. The family can either put their faith on the line and be enriched by that child, or they can reject that child and hopefully give it to somebody else who'll be enriched by that child. But just because you can't be as productive as other people think you can be, or as other people are, doesn't mean your quality of life is any different, is any less, I should say. And Mike Campo is a very good example of that, and I'm so proud of him that he actually mentioned that. Mike Campo, for a long time, nobody saw that shorthand that he had. And he gets out on this film, and the first time I saw him get out on this film, it wasn't in the original cut. He gets out on this film and says, "I was born this way," and look at what he's been able to accomplish. That's why that line about Miss Katzman, which I think is made up, by the way. But the fact that, that Mrs. Katzman, he's so proud of what he's been able to accomplish, even with that deformity, which you can imagine has been a really rough thing through his entire life. That's an excellent point, and I think something we need to hang on to with all the debate that's going on. The quality of life is a very, 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 very tricky thing. The quality of life does not reflect on the value that we have in our relationships with one another. Thanks for mentioning that.
Well, let me ask you a question. Since you know these gentlemen so well, why didn't they portray more in the film how their community of faith, being the house that they're living in, which is a community of faith, besides being a house of people who do not have anywhere else to go? Why didn't they portray more how the community of faith was helping all of these experiences that they were having and that they were showing in their film?
I think very, very honestly, because we've been too long. I think that's the easy answer. They have tons and tons and tons of footage, and they have been trying to cut out even some of the statements that people were making, trying to cut it down to keep it to a manageable length. I think they're worried that because they did have tons of footage, like you saw, of more of their relationships with one another. I mean, they took pictures of the shower, for God's sake. But they really had to. And one of the things I tell you is that they have mass there regularly. They have confessions there regularly. Some of us go there and offer to be that kind of service to them. And they do service in the community. But it wasn't really about their community. It was about how they discovered that the meaning of human life in other communities. I think it would just take too much time in the film. I think that's basically it.
The other thing too that I really appreciate is I'm Jewish, and I think talking about their community specifically, with this whole film being about humanity, I think it was more inclusive, not focusing on one specific faith. Not that there's not value in it, and I appreciate the lesson with the cross, and I think it does say exactly what you stated, but I think the goal of the film in general, I think it felt more inclusive to me because of that, because it actually reflected different faiths. And even the talking head experts they have reflected different faiths, which I thought was very strong.
I also think if this movie is willing to engage that conversation from a human perspective and not in detriment of religion. I think the movie is very honest. The movie is quite eloquent in its depiction of what it means to be human, and at the same time, it also presents the idea, or it presents us with the image of God. And I think one gentleman here expressed it quite well, that God is present throughout the film, in the human relations, in the struggle, in the pain, in the search for answers, in the questions, in the tears, in the leprosy, in the AIDS. God is quite present. The experts spoke of God, some of them directly, some of them very subtly as well, but artistically, this movie paints a beautiful picture about humanity, but a humanity that reflects God's image. And I think that was very evident, at least to me.